Welcome, everyone. We have a good podcast episode ready for today. We've got the infamous or famous, I don't know however you look at it, Sherif Mityas with Brix Holdings. And he's going to tell us about, well, anything and everything related to what they do and trials and tribulations that they've seen over the years, and hopefully just give us all kinds of good thoughts, insights, and let us in on some of the experiences that he's had, and hopefully for the benefit, of course, of all the viewers. So, Sharif, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Sean.
Absolutely. Good to have you on. So, to get us started, if you wouldn't mind, if you could give us an introduction to your business and basically the problems you solve for people.
Sure. Yeah. So I have the great honor and pleasure of leading Brix Holdings. So Brix Holdings is a restaurant portfolio group. We have 8 brands, comprises about 300 locations across about 45 states here in the United States. And we basically help run these restaurant brands for our franchisees. So each location, as you can imagine, like a McDonald's or a Burger King, is run by an owner operator, a franchisee, franchise partner, and we help them basically with the brand, right? So we have the brand, we know the menu, we have the assets, the signage, the logos, the operational requirements for the team members. We create the recipes and really set up all the pieces around marketing, technology to help run that store, all the components to help our franchisees be successful. And so Brix has, again, 8 brands, our largest one being on more on the eastern seaboard of the United States, the Friendly's restaurant chain. So for those of you who grew up on the East Coast, probably remember Friendly's, great place for family dining. 30% of every check has ice cream, so it's very ice cream forward, dessert focused, very kid friendly from a family dining perspective. And this year it's celebrating its 90th birthday. So it's
Nice.
been around for a long, long time. And then we have a number of other brands, like I mentioned. So we have Clean Juice, which is our organic, certified organic juice bar. We have about 70 of those locations around the country. Great smoothies, juices, toasts, sandwiches, bowls for a very health conscious consumer. We have 2 frozen yogurt concepts. Red Mango, also more centered kind of in the Northeast and Midwest. More of a healthier probiotic, kind of the adult frozen yogurt shop, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Orange Leaf, which has about, again, 70 some locations, more kid friendly. Kind of think of Willy Wonka for frozen yogurt, with all
Nice.
your gummies and all your snacks that you can put on top of frozen yogurt. And then we also have another health concept called Smoothie Factory Plus Kitchen. So again, kind of smoothies, healthy for you food. We have Super Salad, which for those of you in Texas, very familiar with the soup and salad buffet concept, the handmade scratch soups and salads that we offer in those locations. We have a couple small brands, Humble Donuts, so little donut shop, and a pizza jukebox brand. So we also have pizza within our portfolio. So we've got yeah. So I mean, what we solve for is creating memories, creating great experiences for our guests around food. And if most people think about when they had good memories growing up, it might have been a birthday party, might have been after Little League, might have been just going out with friends. Those are normally experiences that are had around a table with food or drink. And so, what we like to think is we provide the opportunity for those experiences, for those memories to take place. And that's what we solve for, and that's what our franchisees are in business for, is really creating great guest experiences and memorable experiences that engender loyalty, engender an affinity to our brands, so that we can keep those guests coming back again and again.
All right, that's a lot. So you guys have you said 8 brands, restaurants in 45 states, lots of options, lots of locations. You guys are handling a lot of people's dreams and services. So
Well, that's it.
Uh,
That's, a lot of our franchisees are what we call mom and pop operators, right?
mm,
They might have been doing something before as a career and decided, I want to be my own boss. I want to have my own thing. I want to create my own legacy. And it's a great opportunity for someone to come in and be an owner, right? And be a franchise owner, take over a spot and create a spot and be able to serve their community and set their own hours, set their own, have their own team and make things happen for themselves and their family. So it's really, we like to think of it as also kind of continuing to promote and support the American dream, right? Where you can be anything you want, no matter what you went to school for, or we can train you how to run a frozen yogurt shop.
yes, and Action Coach is a franchise, so I'm rather familiar with franchises and, of course, other franchisees. And Action Coach is in 81 countries, so you guys are obviously proliferating in the United States. Are you outside of the U.S. or mostly is it just in the U.S.?
We do have some red mangoes in Puerto Rico,
Okay.
and we have some smoothie factories outside the United States in Europe and actually in Southeast Asia as well.
Oh, cool. So is that sort of was that kind of coincidental, or are you guys kind of looking to try to expand into those areas, or?
When we bought the brands, they were existing in some of these other
Okay.
countries already. So right now we still see a lot of what we call white space
Hmm.
open in the United States. So
Yeah.
really that's been our primary focus.
Yeah. Still plenty of growth here in the U.S. Yes.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so like you were saying, franchise again. I'm just mentioning, well, obviously we're franchise, so I understand it very well. And of course, I chose to buy a franchise, so I understand some of the benefits of what you guys provide as a franchise. Definitely, sort of maybe a safer venture for a lot of people that, well, if they've had a business or not in the past, there's typically a better, let's say, survival rate for franchisees, and of course, mainly for the reasons of what you guys do and how you help them with the marketing and the operations and all the things you mentioned. So lots of good things about the opportunities you're providing. I like it. So how actually this question, don't know if you run it. I don't know if you own it. So I don't know if you own it or if you started it. So did you start the business, or are you kind of continuing the business, or kind of proliferating the business for somebody else?
Yeah, so the Brix Holdings was really launched about 13 years ago with the acquisition of its first brand, which was Red Mango. Um, and so Red Mango kind of was the initial brand. Over the years, more brands got acquired. I joined Brix Holdings about 3.5 years ago. And again, was fortunate to work with the original investor group, who's still, on the board of directors. Um, and that original investor group started with the Red Mango. We've been working together, me personally here for the last 3.5 years to really continue to grow not just organically the brands that we have from a location perspective, but also to acquire new brands,
Mm-hmm.
right? The benefit of the portfolio is scale and being able to create more brands under a singular shared services umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can provide more services to some of the smaller brands that wouldn't be able to afford it on their own, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we just bought one of our brands this past May in 2024, which was the Clean Juice brand. And so that's part of kind of what we do is not only grow our existing, but look for acquisitions to be able to continue to grow the portfolio. So me personally, I've been with the brand for about 3.5 years in its 13-year journey.
Awesome. So, kind of how and why did you decide, hey, I'm going to go do this Brix thing? Like, where'd that come from?
Yeah, so a lot of things appeal to me from a personal perspective. One I knew some of the founders, right, and so that personal connection of understanding who these guys were, what their focus was, how they think about kind of growing a portfolio group, very much aligned with my thoughts, and from a strategic perspective, where I felt I could be helpful in terms of continuing that journey for that group. And then I love the brands, right? So even though I grew up in the Midwest and I now live in Dallas, I went to school on the East Coast. So I had fond memories of Friendlies, for instance, and
Mm-hmm.
Red Mango. And so I knew those brands, even though they were old, so to speak, still had good bones. And, being able to be part of their resurgence and helping them grow again was very appealing to me.
Nice. And so I lived for 14 years in Boston, so I'm familiar with the East Coast, well, Northeast Coast, but also the East Coast. And so we definitely saw our share of friendlies around. It's the red signs, right? They're red.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's been a while now. I've been in Dallas for 10 years, so I haven't seen any recently. But
Yep.
yes, definitely one of the common signs you'd see in that area. Um, so real quick on the brands, how come tell me maybe a little bit more detail. How come you guys are interested in acquiring more brands? Like you have, obviously, there's growth you can have within a single brand, but how come more brands?
Yeah. So when we think about a portfolio group, think about as a franchisor what we have to support, right? So we have to support, like I mentioned, technology, right? So everyone has their point of sale. Everyone has an internet. Everyone has a website, an app. If you think about a supply chain, right? We have to buy strawberries for lots of different groups. We have to buy bananas. We have to buy chicken. If you think about, finance, right? So there's lots of things that help support franchisees from a financial management perspective, right? So if I have a core group in finance, a core group in supply chain, a core group in technology, my shared services, they can basically do the same thing they're doing for 5 brands for 10,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they can leverage basically their knowledge, their process, their capabilities across more brands without necessarily having to add a lot more cost.
Mm-hmm.
So the benefit of scale becomes very evident. If I can continue to add brands and support them with a singular core shared service, that helps everybody, right? Everyone's cost structure is lower. People are getting kind of higher level capabilities and support without having to pay their full load
Yep.
because those little brands couldn't afford a CFO, couldn't afford a head of supply chain, couldn't
Yep.
afford a CIO. But when they take a portion of my CFO, CIO, head of supply chain, it makes it affordable and they can still get a much higher level of support and care than they normally would.
Mm-hmm.
So benefit for the franchisee, benefit for us because we can create more scale and efficiencies as we continue to add brands to the portfolio.
Nice. Yeah, I know a lot of people, I think, are a little typically, I'd say, less educated on branding or a lot of people, I think, probably have heard that there's multiple sort of brands within, for example, a car company, but like they don't really understand kind of why, or I
Right.
mean, maybe why, but and so I think it's interesting to hear from your perspective why you guys are interested. Obviously, purposefully gotten into more brands for the reasons that you stated. So I always think that's kind of an interesting learning, maybe for some or most. So, what's been the hardest thing that you've been through thus far? And we'll stick with Brix. So in the last 3.5 years, maybe, what's been the hardest thing you've been through, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I think, the obvious one that hit everybody in the restaurant space was obviously the pandemic. When all of a sudden you didn't have guests coming out to stores anymore and eating out, that impacted everybody, not just us. But I think, what we learned from that, I think is, everyone says resilience, but I think it was also a focus on creating different opportunities to meet guests where they are.
Hmm.
So you can't come to us. We got to get the food to you, right? So a lot of investment, a lot of work around technology and programs and processes to do off premise, right? To do better delivery, to do better pickup, to do better where your guests are want to eat or drink, make sure it's available to them, make sure you can get it to them. And so, that really helped out not just us, but the entire industry is to accelerate those investments, to accelerate what people can do now in terms of really the convenience factor that consumers now expect, right? I expect to be able to pick up my phone and get whatever I want to eat or drink whenever I want it,
Yeah.
right? Whether I want to sit on my couch, whether I want to go pick it up through a drive-through, or whether I want to pick it up in the store, whether I want to sit in the restaurant.
Hmm.
All those options are now available. And I think what the pandemic did was accelerate that by like 10 times the timing that it would have normally taken to get the restaurant industry really on board with that and really what we went through to be able to provide that. And you would think our concepts are not really conducive to delivery, right? We sell a lot of ice cream and frozen yogurt, but a lot of people still order it for delivery. And so you have to figure it out, right? You have to, what do you put it in the deep chiller before
Mm.
that Uber or Grubhub or DoorDash driver shows up to make sure it reaches the guest's home in a good state, right? So that they're still having a great experience with your product, even though they're not coming to your restaurant. So lots of learnings from packaging to recipes to processes to technology that really helped accelerate kind of what we do and now what we continue to do to make sure our guests are having a great time.
Yes, quite the transitions going from pretty commonly going into a place to eat to not being able to. So guess what? What are the options to get the food to my house? And obviously, you guys were part of that in a big way, part of the challenge. And it sounds like you've made the adjustments, and now you've added all those features and you know
That's right.
conveniences, as you said, to the business. So
That's right.
um, yes, definitely a lot of pivoting happening there in the COVID time frame, and glad you guys came out on top. So, what about biggest learnings as an employer? Don't know how many team you have, but obviously having a good team is a good big part of solid growth. So, what have been some of the bigger learnings as an employer you've had?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have two different kinds of employers if you think about it. So we have our core corporate team, obviously, and we're about, 50 strong on there. But then I've got our franchisees teams, which we
Mm-hmm.
also care about. Because we always kind of say the guest experience will never be better than the team member experience, right? How many times have you gone to a restaurant and the server was having a bad day? Doesn't really matter how
Yeah,
good the food was,
yeah,
that impacts that experience, right?
mm-hmm.
So team members, you got to make sure they're having a great experience. You got to make sure they're trained. So I think the biggest learnings for us was really about kind of this new generation, so to speak, of team members, right? And how they learn, right? You can't send out a big manual and have them turn pages, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be interactive. It's got to be online. It's got to be something they can digest on their phone. It's got to be 20-second videos, right? It's got to be things that will create, the interest level, the attention span level, and the retention that you want from your team members to be able to absorb what you want them to know, right? The key pieces to ensure that they're providing a great guest experience and that they're getting what they want out of that position, right? So training was a big thing we learned in terms of how to create a very different mindset and process around training. There's also a very different mindset just around not just recruiting but retention as well, right? How do you keep people? Because everyone knows turnover in the restaurant industry is one of the worst in any sector outside of retail, right? And so when you're dealing with those kind of high retention, it's critically important because then it's just retraining every time you got to bring someone new on, right?
Yeah.
And so what are those key things that are important to people, right? It's feeling like they're part of a team, feeling like what they do matters. And it does. And so having our GMs, which are kind of our general managers or our franchise owners, really understand those principles, really understand and be able to convey the culture they want to set within their four walls, right? To create that kind of team dynamics that is going to engender not just a great team experience, but retention and loyalty to that location. And so, and you can't brush it off. You can't just spend 10 minutes a week on it. It is a full-time job. And I think that's what people have come to understand, not just us as leaders in our franchise system, but as our franchisees and our GMs have come to understand, it's as critically important as watching over your food cost and watching over your waste, or doing inventory. It's critically important and one of the first things that they have to think about every day. And probably the last thing that they think about is, did I do a good enough job every night? And there's no silver bullet to it, but it's an ongoing learning is kind of what works, what doesn't for your particular team. But we set values at the highest level, and the values for Brix, we kind of use the acronym FACE, FACE. Everyone out there, our team members, our franchisees, the 16-year-old at a frozen yogurt shop, they are the face of Brix. And that means you are friendly, you are accountable, you are compassionate, and you are engaged. And so if you live by those four values, which we want everyone to do, then you are the face of Brix, and we very much appreciate you being part of the team.
Excellent. Yeah. So we call, and obviously we're trainers, action coach, business coaching. We do a lot of training, and so we call one of our goals for training is edutainment. So education, but also entertaining. And obviously,
Right.
people have attention spans have continued to decrease over the years, and so if it's not entertaining to some degree or interactive and engaging like the things you were describing, then guess what? People aren't going to do it, and
Right.
that's only going to take you so far. So yeah, those are good things to make sure you're doing. Obviously, like you mentioned, I mean it's critical for everybody, but potentially more critical in your industries, in the restaurant industry with the turnover that's there. So, but like you said, you could have the perfect everything else happening, but if the team is not on its best place, then guess what? That impacts everything else. So it's definitely one of the key building blocks that you guys are tackling.
That's right.
Yeah. Um, what about so in 3.5 years, you've probably seen a lot of things, especially during the COVID time, and like you said, accelerated things, but probably also took some years off your life. If you were gonna like restart, and obviously, we know you've been for 3.5 years, it's been around for a little bit longer, but if you were gonna restart Brix today, what would you do? What would you change? What would you do different?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think with some hindsight, I would say being able to really accelerate even more so the acquisition of brands. It took a while, kind of on that 13-year journey, to get to a point where we felt comfortable enough having the
Mm,
platform, having the strength in each of the functional areas to be able to add brands. And so if I was to start it all over today, that's where I would focus 100% of the time to start, is creating that solid shared services platform faster,
mm,
so that we could accelerate that growth from an acquisition perspective even more and have more brands now, bigger brands now. But it takes time, right? And with so many things going on, it is where we are. But if we had to do it all over again, I think that'd be where we'd start, because the model works. I mean, it's and some of the biggest guys out there in the industry, that's their model, right? If you look at
mm-hmm.
an Inspire brands, they have Buffalo Wild Wings, Arby's, Sonic, Dunkin'. They are one portfolio group with
Mm,
massive brands under their
yeah,
portfolio, but they have these shared services. Now, they still have things that are very brand specific, like we do, like marketing. Marketing has to be brand specific,
yeah,
but there's no reason your technology team
yeah.
can't be one team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a proven model, and in hindsight, we should have done that faster, to be able to acquire faster. But we're pretty happy where we are right now.
Yeah, and so a couple things you said, I'm always sort of taking notes because you're a lot of good stuff into what you're saying, but you mentioned it took us a while to feel comfortable, which is humans, right? Hey, it's risky to
Right.
go out and try something new, or hey, acquire this new brand. So I'm curious, how many years did it take to acquire the first, or I'd say, yeah, to go to the second brand?
Yeah, it took six,
6 years. And then how many years did it take to go to the third one?
only two.
Two. And then the fourth one was probably what, a year?
Yeah, well, then
Yeah.
we acquired two after that,
Oh,
back to
see?
back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
so it,
that's
it
what
does
I
accelerate.
exactly, and that's sort of that exponential curve that again typically happens in sort of the growth scenario because it's like we're not comfortable, we're not comfortable, we're not comfortable. Oh wait, we're comfortable. Ooh, actually now we're way more comfortable, and you just start. Now it's like well you've done it once, you just start. You get to eight, right? And
That's right.
so
Then you
and
ramp.
that's what's kind of cool. And again, it's difficult to know which of those uncomfortable things you should do first.
Right,
But obviously, like you said, hey, hindsight, sure, be fantastic if you had it when you started, but you don't. And
right,
so for you, you feel, hey, if we'd been able to do that just that much faster, man, growth could be even better. Yeah.
that's right.
So good stuff. So you mentioned this, but I want to ask the question. So are you basically where you expected to be at this stage? Or, did you think you'd be further along? Did you think you might not be as far along? But, so where you are now, is that where you expected you'd be?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point we're in a good spot, like I mentioned. Kind of an expectation. Our expectations are always higher than reality. Would I like to have another brand or two at this point? Sure. Do I think we could have absorbed it faster? Probably not, right? So I'd say we're probably in the right spot for us.
Yeah.
I will say that we're probably also in the right spot to now continue that acceleration from a growth perspective, right? So we're actively looking for the next brand to acquire. And so we'll continue on that journey. And a little bit of it is, I'll say luck, but it's part of which brands are available, right? Which ones are going to be there at the right price that fit within our model and that we believe have a growth trajectory, right? So they're not always just sitting around on the deal plate waiting to be picked up. And so we're kind of a little bit at that whim, but I think we're in a good spot. And I think our expectation is we're going to continue to grow at a pretty good clip.
Nice. Yeah, what is it? Perspiration meets opportunity, or I forget what the
Right.
the luck, whatever those combination of things are, right? You got obviously have to be prepared. And then of course, when the opportunities arise, which you don't know, then great.
Right.
Maybe you can take advantage of them. So it sounds like you guys are ready and willing. What's next? So obviously you've like kind of mentioned, acquiring brands that much faster, you've been growing that kind of stuff. What's next? What's the next kind of big goal or what's on the horizon?
Yeah, I think our next kind of big goal is twofold. One is again to really continue to build the pipeline of locations of the brands we have, right? So for us, we'd like to be in a kind of a flywheel position where every year we're adding another at least 20 to 25 locations from the core brands we have, right? To kind of continue their growth, scale those brands. They're great. We need to add them to a lot more white space neighborhoods, communities, cities across the country. And then second is to really, again, acquire potentially a little bit bigger brand, right? So add another, call it, 75 to 100 unit brand that has some big growth potential to it to really bolt on to the portfolio and really kind of create, again, kind of the next, let's call it step change from a revenue and from a profitability perspective for the portfolio. That's really on our agenda for the next 12 months.
Awesome. And so, like I said, got to take care of current brands. Hey, got to continue to grow the stuff we got. And then you're looking for the next kind of bigger thing that's maybe bigger. You said it's kind of 75 to 100.
That's right.
Yeah, looking to take the next step, the next bigger step. So,
Next bigger step.
yeah. And so obviously you've been through a lot of trials and tribulations. You've told us about some of them. What about like what might be some of the challenges that could get in the way? Because you've seen some challenges. Any thoughts on what you might see as some of the challenges as you're going through that kind of next step?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now there's still a lot of uncertainty in the market, right? And so from a consumer perspective, there's uncertainty, right? Folks are not sure from an economic position where they are. You have some folks that in certain income levels are pulling back, right, on going out. They're going to go to the grocery store and eat at home more often, right? So that impacts in terms of the growth projections that we have for some of the brands. There's still a lot of concern around, kind of inflation and cost of goods and labor. And, as states continue to raise minimum wage, that impacts our franchisees, right? Profitability. When you see the price of things like eggs,
Those freaking eggs, man, get them down.
quadruple, right, in price in the last couple of months,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
all has an impact, right, for folks that
You
use
don't
eggs in
you
their
don't cook
menu.
any things with eggs, do you?
Right. Yeah, well, we serve breakfast at Friendly's.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there is that, but there's I think that's the piece is just there's uncertainty, right? There's nothing that's sitting out there that's saying this is a big shiny negative. It's the uncertainty that sometimes more paralyzes, and we can't let that happen, right? We've got contingency plans. You have to have strategies in place that kind of projects what you do if X happens, right? If this, then that. And so I think half of our job as a franchisor at the corporate side is being ready for those types of
Yep.
things, right? Having the contingency plans in place, because you can't be caught flat-footed. You can't have saying, well, I didn't anticipate that, right? Because your franchisees are going to be coming to you looking for answers, right? And so you got to be say, yep, we thought that might happen. Here's the response, right? And so this is slowing down. We have to offer these kind of incentives, or this is happening with these products. This is what we're going to do with the recipes, or a menu change. And so we've got to be able to respond quickly in our world, because we have to earn guests every day, right? We have to make money every day because the margins in the restaurant business are not high fashion, right? And so you have to make pennies. And so that's for us, I think, is the key, is really just trying to ride out kind of the valleys that are going to occur throughout a year. We were fortunate enough to have a great year last year. Our brands were, positive sales comp, and so everyone grew, which was great. But it's a whole new year. We start over from scratch, right? And no one gives you credit for what you did last year. It's what have you done for me yesterday? So we're all on that path, and we're all trying to do what we can to ensure, again, our franchisee success going forward.
Nice. Yeah, I like it. Continually looking forward. Of course, that's the best way to be a leader. If you're on the front, you got to keep looking forward so you can help make sure your franchisees and so forth are best prepared and have their different options available. So
that's right.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, I really appreciate having you on, and for you giving us all the information about your path and process and how you've mitigated challenges and had successes and all the good stuff. So I think there's some good things people can take away from your openness. So thank you very much, and we appreciate having you on. And
thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. We'll wish you the best, of course, and thank you very much.
Thanks.